When humans first took to the air, they didn't ask anybody, they just did it. When humans first took to space, they didn't ask anyone, they just did it. Nowadays, the use of the air is strongly regulated to ensure the safety for all. I think the time has come to regulate space as well, to ensure safety for all.
I think by more comprehensive dialogue between all elements of the community, between the civil, commercial and military, and internationally, the more we talk together and understand the issues, the more likely we are to get to resolutions.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the question. I think what we need to do, we need to improve on the governance of space. We've seen over the last couple of years that there are more players in space that are now implementing space program, that are non-state players, that are not government or defense-related players. Initially, space programs used to be implemented by governments, but now it's more industry and private companies. So if you've got a growing number of private companies implementing space programs, that means you need to improve on your regulations, because now, even the space environment and space activities is quite now diverse and different from what it was, 50 years ago.
I think the best way to make space more stable and predictable is through international cooperation. So I think looking at previously there were unilateral programs. Now we need to see more multilateral and cooperation between different countries, especially developing countries that need to learn from the older countries in space.
I think one of the first things that we need to get in play is the rules of the road, rules of engagement while talking about outer space activities, because you have new space actors, new technologies, new ways of using some of the old technologies. So the need of the hour is to review some of the old mechanisms, old treaties and mechanisms, but also strengthen or create new mechanisms, because some of the old mechanisms have really gone out of fashion, not because, but because they are not dealing with the contemporary challenges that you're dealing with. And also the number of institutions that we are talking about. Some of the old institutions are unable to deal with the contemporary challenges, whether you're talking about the UN Committee on the Peaceful Use of Outer Space, their entire mandate leaves out the security-related activities. Or you talk about the Conference on Disarmament in Geneva, which is a UN body that deals with the arms control aspects of outer space. Again, you have a huge problem. The CD has remained stalemated for more than 2 decades. So where do you have these discussions? So I think the things that we need to get in play at this point of time, review some of the old mechanisms, try and create new mechanisms which may be in the form of transparency and confidence building measures, but also more importantly, explore further what is the venue, where are you going to discuss these contemporary issues, and what is the way forward. I think so that's the nutshell, and I think that should be a priority for us to continue using outer space in a sustainable and secure manner for the foreseeable future. Thank you.
The opportunities that now, if you have more and more private companies coming to the space environment, then it means that there will be a growth in investment, there will be more economic activity. And for developing countries like ours, I'm from South Africa, so you see an opportunity of job creation, and high-end skills being created.
Before we get to the idea of accessing the resource, we must think about what is there to stop us from harnessing the resource. What will stop us from harnessing the resource is our lack of information and data. So before we talk about resource, we must deal with the issue of data and information. And the issue with that is we're not sharing data and information enough amongst ourselves. So that's the first thing we have to do, the sharing of data and information. That will lead to the stability that we need in order to harness those resources.
One way, in my opinion, is create enough global awareness about the need to behave responsibly in space so that future investments can be guaranteed. And how do we do that? There's a need for a strong regulatory regime that is flexible, that is inclusive, and that the fears, particularly of the developing world, will be eased in such a manner that collectively we can take a decision now. It's obvious that enormous problem confronts us in the future about issues of space debris and uncontrolled satellite launch. There's a need to take a decision, and the time is now.
Now, regulations, when we regulate now, we need to make sure that space is used for peaceful purposes. We need to make sure that we promote a non-militarization of space. We need to make sure that there's equal and equitable access, to space resources. Things like orbital slots and frequencies need to be shared equally. There's a lot of development that we need, in our own country. So those things are very important. Responsible use of space is also very important, whereby we make sure that whoever is launching an object in space, there's some level of responsibility, there's some insurance that is covering the full value chain of that program. The issue of space debris, needs to be also to be managed. Issues of human capital development, technology transfer, especially for underdeveloped nations, is also very important. And the relation need to also to make sure that we promote regional, multilateral, and bilateral partnerships.